good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. Depends on the time zone you are living in, please accept our greetings. Welcome to the panel on high touch versus high tech or both that will host 4 distinguished invited speakers and a legendary moderator. Let me introduce them to you one by one in alphabetical order based on their surnames. Dr. A.J. Alluri, who is an associate professor in the hospitality program at the WVU John Chambers College of Business and Economics, is an internationally recognized scholar, speaker, and thought leader in the fields of hospitality innovation and technology. He established the state-of-the-art space, Hospitality Innovation and Technology, which is HEAT Lab, at the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, West Virginia University. Dr. Alluri's academic and research expertise combines all areas of his education, research interests, and focus in the areas of hospitality information technology and management and information systems, and how these areas impact international hospitality organizations, society, and education. His current focus is consumer behavior research regarding the use of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, augmented reality, data mining, Internet of Things, robotics, and virtual reality. His research has been published in several top academic journals and industry outlets. Dr. Alluri is the founding director of the HEAT Lab, a platform to bridge the gaps between academic and industry research. He incorporates real-life projects based on issues faced by hospitality businesses today so that students can get hands-on problem-solving experience. Dr. Ulrike Grätzell, who is a senior fellow at the Center of Public Relations, University of Southern California, serves as the Director of Research at Netnographica. She is a fellow of the International Academy for the Study of Tourism. Her research focuses on technology-mediated communication and persuasion in digital media. Her expertise spans the design and evaluation of intelligent systems, as well as the development and implications of artificial intelligence. Her work in tourism addresses ways in which tourists engage with each other and with tourism organizations through websites, mobile apps, and social media, and has analyzed how tourism experiences are represented and marketed online. She studies social media marketing, influencer marketing, and the emerging reputation economy. She has also researched smart tourism development, technology adoption, and non-adoption in tourism organizations, and the quest for digital detox experiences. Dr. Grätzell has published over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles. She is frequently acknowledged as one of the most cited authors in the fields of tourism and persuasion. Dr. Stanislav Ivanov, who is currently professor and vice rector at the Varna University of Management in Bulgaria, is also the director of Zangador Research Institute. Professor Ivanov is the founder and editor-in-chief of 2 academic journals, the European Journal of Tourism Research and Robonomics, the Journal of the Automated Economy. His research interests include robonomics, automation in tourism hospitality, the economics of technology, revenue management, and etc. His publications have appeared in different academic journals, Annals of Tourism Research, Tourism Management, International Journal of Hospitality Management, Technology in Society, and other journals. His book, co-edited with Craig Webster, Robots, Artificial Intelligence and Service Automation in Travel, Tourism, and Hospitality, was published by Emerald Publishing in 2019. Dr. East Tusiadia, who is Professor of Intelligent Systems in Service and Acting Head of School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at University of Surrey, conducts research on digital transformation in the travel and hospitality industry, investigating the applications and implications of intelligent systems in services to inform business practice and policy. She is Surrey Principal Investigator for the PREWELT project, funded by the UK's Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, aiming to develop user-centric, privacy-aware data management platform to facilitate seamless, highly personalized travel experience for tourists. She served as Vice President and President of the International Federation for Information Technologies and Travel and Tourism, and is the founding member of the Alliance for Innovators and Researchers in Tourism and Hospitality. And last but not least, our moderator of the session, the Professor Cihan Çobanoğlu, who is the conference co-chair. Dr. Çobanoğlu is the McGibbon Endowed Chair Professor of the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in the Muma College of Business at the University of South Florida, who also serves as the Director of the M3 Center for Hospitality Technology and Innovation and Coordinator of International Programs for the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. He is a renowned hospitality and tourism technology expert. He is the editor of the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology, that is an SSCI journal, editor of Journal of Global Business Insights, Journal of Global Hospitality and Tourism, and co-author of 6 books and 10 conference proceedings. He is also currently serving as the president of Association of North America Higher Education International. He is the founder of eReviewer.org, an open access paper management system, and academiacentral.org, a portal for educators around the world. On behalf of the conference organizing committee, I would like to welcome all our panelists and our distinguished moderator, Professor Çobanoğlu. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Doğan. I also would like to welcome all of my panelists to join me today. I really appreciate you accepting my invitation to be here with me. Seeing is Uli, Stan, and AJ feels like family. You know, we are in the same circle. We have met in many different conferences. Of course, IFIT is one of our homes, and AJ actually was also one of my panelists and keynote speaker in Vietnam a few years ago. You know, I bet that if I were to invite you to Turkey in person, you would have still come, and we would have enjoyed a little bit good food and baklava at the end of this panel. But so we are not going to be able to do that, but I will give you a rain check. So when we meet in person, I will buy you a nice dinner and a good dessert. Hopefully that will happen in Turkey. So without further ado, I would like to welcome all participants here. This session is streamed live on YouTube as well, not only as the moderator of this panel, but also as the co-chair with Dr. Ebru Gündü Küçükaltan of the second Managing Tourism Across Continents Conference. It is really a privilege to be part of this open access conference. As you all know, that I am personally a very big proponent of open access. Stan and I had a lot of conversations about for his journal. You know, I am proud to be one of the people that convinced him, let's go open access, Stan, and he did. I'm also proud of him that not only his premier journal, mainstream journal, European Tourism Research Journal, but also new journal, Journal of Robonomics, is also open access. So, you know, even though Dr. Doğan has introduced our panelists in alphabetical order, we made a change. We are going to go with the ladies first. And what I would like to do now, I would like to invite all of our attendees to take a piece of paper like I have and a pen and start writing questions, because I will ask each panelist to give an opening statement. And I didn't want to give them a structure. I didn't want to ask them talk about robots or artificial intelligence. They are the experts in this field. They are doing research in this field. That's why I would like them to create and do an opening statement. Our question is simple: high touch versus high tech, or both. As you know, hospitality tourism is a people tourism, right? Everybody is talking about the hospitality, the definition of it. I mean, I was curious the other day. I opened up the dictionary, I looked at hospitality. There were many great things: warm, smile, welcome, make people welcome, but there was nothing about technology. But yet, we know that even today, by doing this conference, we are using its event, right? Meetings and events sector, but we are using technology. So for that reason, I'm not going to talk too much. I would like to ask first Uli Grätzel, Professor Uli Grätzel, to give her opening statement, and I have asked them about 10 minutes. While they are talking, please take notes and use the chat box there. Please keep your questions coming, and then we're going to go to Professor Is, and to be followed by AJ and Stan. So Dr. Uli, the floor is yours now for your opening statement.
Thank you so much. And yes, I wish we could be in Turkey. I just got my second shot of the vaccine. So I'm hoping that at some point in the future, I'll be able to go back to Europe. So I'm going to just quickly share my slide here. If you could just confirm that you can see them.
Yeah, if you just click on the slideshow. We don't see the slideshow yet.
Yeah, I'm trying. My computer is still waking up. Should be
wanna,
happening now.
Yes, now we see.
Okay, excellent. And all right, so I would like to start with a little bit of a controversial statement and to get that discussion going. And I think that we automatically assume that high touch is good and that high tech is somehow cold and detrimental to tourism in a way. And I think, if anything, the pandemic has really taught us that high touch is actually maybe now not such a good thing. And that we now have connotations of touches as being something that could be negative. And all this fits within this overall notion of how we make sense of the world. And technology is part of that world. And so we also engage in technology sense making. And Stan and Craig, when they actually edited their book, asked me to contribute a chapter. And I'm just going to introduce you very quickly to some of the ideas that me and Jamie Murphy have proposed in the chapter to kind of understand the sense making. So making sense of technology, what does that actually mean? Humans need to create meaning, right? They need to make sense of what's happening around them. And in terms of technology, they do that in a cognitive way. So they have attitudes, they have mental models, they have technological frames that they use to kind of interpret technology, whether it's AI or a robot. And very often, unfortunately, in research, we very narrowly focus on very concrete attitudes that we ask people about in surveys. And that's not the whole story. So there's more to it, even on the cognitive side, in terms of how people think about technology. But then there's also social factors like norms and power structures and the roles people have, whether you are using the technology as an employee or whether you are actually using the technology as a consumer, or whether you're putting it in as a hotel owner, trying to facilitate profit making or efficiency in your operations. And in addition to that, technology, maybe AI in general, not so much, although we have embodied AI, but there's a material component to technology. And it's also that materiality that shapes how we make sense of the technology. And here is where design comes in, how design elements then shape our perceptions and our interpretations and meaning makings of technology. But in addition to that, my husband has actually been working on this issue for a long, long time. There's also ideological components to this, how we understand technology. And so ideology describes the cultural forces, so the larger forces and dynamics in which technology use and consumption is entangled and through which these meanings are created. So I don't know if you've ever seen his semiotic square of the ideological field of technology, but there's four major positions that we can take in this ideology of technology. And one is techtopian, which means technology is seen as or technology consumption is seen as progress, right? So this is a lot of good things come from technology consumption. It helps us, it empowers, there's moral improvement that emerges from technology use. But then we also have the green Luddites. So technology consumption, meaning the ultimate destruction of what is human and also what is natural. So it's seen as a threat to the established ways of life. It's seen as inauthentic, right? Especially in hospitality. If a robot serves you, that's not an authentic hospitality experience. That's the discussion, right? We're going to have. It's a threat to the traditions we have. It's also a threat to nature because it consumes energy, it creates e-waste, all of that kind of stuff. And then there's the tech-expressive component where technology consumption is seen as pleasure, where it's about play and fun and self-expression. And you see some of our speakers here have a cute little robot floating around in their frames. And so from that perspective, being a robot researcher, right, already is a form of expression. So meaning making comes from this pleasure component. And then there is a technology as an economic engine, as a work machine, where it's about productivity, efficiency, success, wealth, and really instrumental dimensions of technology use. So when we looked at this from a robot perspective, we actually looked at reviews and comments and social media postings that people had left about robots in hospitality settings. And we confirmed that people do have that notion of a robot as a work machine, right? It's super efficient delivery, for example. We also see that people have this techtopian view of robots as social change agents. They make the job easier. They really help us. They help us make progress. Tech-expressive, people actually interact with robots in hospitality settings in fun and playful ways. But then also the robot as threat. And so I really like this quote, bottler will bring you treats and toiletries when you need them, while secretly planning the destruction.
Uli, you are, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me again?
All right, yes, we can hear you now.
What happened there? So I'm not sure if you got the last part of the quote. So bottler, they say, is secretly planning to the destruction of the human race. So there's always this undercurrent of the robots as threat. But in our analysis, we also really saw a different component, that it's not just technology ideology that comes into play here. When we have these intelligent machines, they are actually seen as beings, but quasi-social beings, right, with rights. And there's also this understanding that we need to think about justice and morality in relation to these machines. And so people, for example, feel bad about giving a robot a 1-star rating because that's so cruel. The robot came at 2 a.m. in the morning to deliver my towel. How could I possibly do this to the robot? So I guess my point is that we need to think about these factors to really understand how people approach technology, how they interpret technology, and especially intelligent technology, because they will see it as a little different from just instruments, like I don't know, a ball opener or whatever, right? A tool. So these artificial intelligent technologies are more than that. And it's also important to understand that these ideologies, no one necessarily has a very consistent ideology. Consumers take different parts of these ideologies and combine them. And it also depends on the setting they're in. So in some settings, they will be happy to have that playful interaction, whereas in others, they really see the robot as a threat. And again, it also depends on their role and position. So those are my thoughts to get the discussion started. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Uli. That's great. I took a lot of notes myself. Is, now I would like to turn to you, please, for your opening statement.
Great, thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen, so hopefully this will work.
And it's coming up, and I will tell you when we can see it.
Can you see it?
Here you go. Yep, we can see it now.
Perfect.
Very nice.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for the organizers for inviting me to join the panel of really great speakers. And actually, Uli, great description about making sense of technology. And I think I'm going to go from perhaps a more practical element of the questions, high touch versus high tech, or both. So this morning I found this tweet, and since I like the comic, but since the guy didn't actually provide a reference for the comic, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take the whole tweet here. And it says that our field has been struggling with this problem for years. And then, someone offered, struggle no more, I'm here to solve it with algorithms. But then 6 months later, the guy realized that, wow, this problem is really hard, right? And so this is, I think, what I'm going to perhaps describe a little bit more of the roles of technologies, especially in tourism and hospitality. And that is in the sense that we do sometimes look at technology as a tool, a method that would actually bring us solutions to everything, which in reality, that is not always the case. And sometimes we apply technology and we realize that technology complicates things even more to some extent in some situations. So Uli has mentioned a little bit about COVID and how COVID has accelerated the adoption of different kinds of technologies in hospitality and tourism, because of course, the different lockdown measures, for example, that basically burn the bridge between providers and consumers. So in this case, between destinations and potential tourists, between hotels, restaurants, and potential guests, right? And so then when these lockdown measures or stay-at-home orders were implemented and shops are closing, restaurants, hotels are closing, nobody is traveling anymore, technology is seen as something that will provide an alternative access to guests. And so, restaurants are starting to offer different products or services, taking advantage of, for example, delivery and so on and so forth. So in this case, we actually have seen the applications of how technology would actually bring solutions to problems in tourism and hospitality. But then if we look back when we went into the first lockdown back in 2020, when we started realizing, okay, we're not going to be able to travel anymore domestically or internationally, destinations started to promote virtual reality tours and so on and so forth. And there is a spike in people actually searching for museums, virtual reality tourism and museum and so on. But then I think it was Google showed actually the data. The spike was, I think they stayed for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then afterwards nobody actually looked at them again. And so at the beginning of the lockdown, there was a lot of optimism and positive thought about, how can we then now strategize the use of virtual reality to substitute parts of tourism experience. But then it didn't go that well because I guess it doesn't really translate into the same value that people seek from traveling. So without going too much of this, I'm going to focus on the impacts of COVID, of the pandemic to tourism and hospitality and travel, and see where technology will be able to play a role in providing some solutions that would allow the services and the experiences to be high tech, but at the same time, perhaps also high touch when we're thinking about in the future when we reopen again. So I see there are 3 different problems here with travel and tourism. One on the left right here is because of the regulations, we've seen lots of closures of hospitality services and tourism and travel, and that causes, of course, businesses not being able to operate normally. And of course, there's lots of impacts with that in terms of employees, in terms of SMEs, and so on related to the industry. So there is a big impact on the industry in general. The second one really is with the variations of policies and regulations enacted in different countries, in different regions. So now Europe is experiencing their 3rd or 4th spike of the virus, and so there is different regulations there. Here in the UK, we have been in lockdown for a long time now. We're easing up. We have a roadmap to recovery, and so then that complicates lots of different things in terms of travel requirements and so on and so forth. And then the third one really is, to me, that the changing of travelers' behavior, because they have learned a lot of things during the pandemic, and the change in their behavior might be permanent, might not be permanent. We still yet to see how this goes. And so look into the roles of technology in these things, and I've put together some examples of how AI and robotics have been used in hospitality and travel to provide solutions for this. Some of these are operational, so this is really just to sustain operations. And looking at this, basically technology moved from the novelty and kind of the nice to have things to the must have features of business, because if they don't have this, they will not be able to operate. But these are all, I think, at the operational level. To me, what's important really is at the strategic level, addressing what I mentioned earlier as the problems. And so to me, what's important now in hospitality and tourism, one is to be able to create business models for resilience, and so to support employees, to support as small and medium enterprises in the industry and the industry as a whole. Now, second, addressing the second problem is to be able to personalize travel experience that are basically providing safety for all travelers. And then for the third one, regarding behavior change, is how can we provide nudges for responsible travel behavior? And then lastly, I'm going to look into or suggest different applications where artificial intelligence methods will be able to help with these different problems. So one, to replace portions of travel. So like today, what we are experiencing. So we don't have to go to Turkey, but we still can see each other. But it doesn't mean that in the future we are always going to do conferences this way, but there are possibilities for us to actually substitute some portion of our travel. And then secondly, really is to be able to accurately project travel impact and the demand in the future. And that's where AI can help. Secondly, automation and assistance, those examples that I showed earlier, and also travel facilitation. And then lastly, to address consumer behavior, it's really the applications of responsible and inclusive AI in travel and tourism. So addressing the questions, high touch or high tech or both, I guess it depends. So looking forward to discuss more with everyone after this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor East. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Aluri to make his opening statement, please.
Thank you, Jihan. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's okay, hope you can see this.
Yes, we can see it. And we are seeing the presenter mode right now. You may want to just.
Yep, you should be able to see now.
We are seeing the presenter mode, Ajay.
Okay.
Not the, we see the slides and everything. Next slide. Yeah, now it's good. Perfect.
Okay.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Jihan, thank you again for having me in this panel. A great line of speakers in here. So honored and privileged to speak in this panel's discussion. Initially, I was not really thinking about doing a deck, but later on, when I thought about doing a statement in 10 minutes, I was about to, think about what I should do. Then I thought I'll do a TED Talk kind of a presentation, right? And I think it's important because this is this topic is very close to my research and my philosophy of teaching as well. So I think it's important to discuss this at a global level as well as some of the research that I'm doing. So here is my statement. I definitely see more high tech compared to high touch, but we need a blend of both in tourism and hospitality. And the reason being, it's not because of consumer behavior or businesses adopting to technologies, but the limitations of technology within our industry are what's happening, that we're not able to do more high tech sometimes, that we have to depend on high touch as well, So again, post-pandemic, and I'll give you reasons from some of the research that I'm doing, and also a startup that came out of the HIT Lab and how we started learning more about the pandemic as well. So let me share with a few things at a global level, right? We know that things are not going to be the same anymore, right? So the new normal is going to be something that we all need to adopt, and businesses are already adopting. So we see that at a global studies done, COVID-19 accelerated the consumer digital technology adoption at a rapid pace. At the same time, businesses ended up adopting more faster than the consumers as well. And that impact, that will influence the consumer behavior for the long term in terms of their use as well as their behavior. For instance, here are a few things that I want to share. The first thing that you see here is you're looking at an adoption of 3 years just during the pandemic among consumers. Among businesses, you're looking at 7 years of technology adoption within the time of the pandemic, within that 1 year of pandemic. So what that tells you is, the pandemic somehow enabled high tech adoption more than high touch, and people started really adopting at a faster pace. And this never happened before, by the way. If you look at the longitudinal studies on this, there were at least a 35% increase in 2019, whereas in 2020, you're looking at 57 to 60% increase in the use of digital technologies. The other thing that really is important for making a case for high tech is how we are really making purchases now. The e-commerce platforms have grown 2 to 5 times faster than during the pandemic. Again, it's clearly evident, right? You know, how we making our purchases through Amazon, Instacart, and so on and so forth. Even every retail company now has an app that you can drive and pick up, and so on and so forth. So that's another case for high tech, you know, that we're doing great. Let's talk about lodging. You know, the interesting thing, what Airbnb released a study on this, and they clearly said the guest stay in short-term rentals, the average length of stay has increased at 58% during the pandemic. And the reason being, people are really looking for technology as a platform in order to stay in places without much interactions. On the other hand, what we are seeing is more of a staycations in nature, right? Staycations in nature, and more of a travel is not about tourism, but also where you can live and work. See, that is where you know, the short-term rentals have done a decent job with the app as a platform and information sharing in terms of COVID protocols and guidelines. And that really triggered more of a, you know, increase in length of stay. The other thing that you look at all the studies done in business sector, you know, there is an accelerated technology adoption of cloud computing, 5G, IoTs, machine learning, and augmented reality, and also mixed reality among businesses. What we have done in the last 1 year of the pandemic was the use of more of machine learning and AR and service robot. But we are doing a project on IoT as well. I'm going to share those insights very quick. But again, all these are the reasons why we can make a case for high tech, you know, during pandemic and post pandemic. You know, beginning of our panel session, Jihan talked about we are still a people business, right? People are, you know, we create experiences for people. And I think consumers want to get together with family and friends. They want to go out to an outdoor event and, you know, stay at a hotel and, you know, get out for family entertainment, right? So what we're looking from a social life standpoint is more people have intentions to visit families post COVID-19, but also, as you can see, people are planning on leisure and, you know, travel and leisure activities. More people are waiting for government restrictions to be lifted, but also some of the people are waiting for COVID-19 spread to stop. If you can look at the vaccinations that are happening now, 37 to 39% of them are, you know, waiting for them to get vaccinated or their family to get vaccinated in order to make these plans. So again, this is a great for, you know, that there is enough hope for our industry, that more people are really looking for it. So there's going to be a rise in our tourism and hospitality industry. As vaccinations are happening at a rapid pace, you know, you can see that the vaccinated consumers, 70 to 39%, versus the vaccine-interested consumers want to engage in more out-of-home entertainment activities. And these activities are what, you know, the new normal is going to look like. People want to be outside in an outdoor event, indoor cultural event, family entertainment, and so on and so forth. And during the time, they want to be social, right? So they prefer high touch during these times versus high tech. But high tech as one of the important platforms to share information during the pandemic and post pandemic. And here are a few research insights and predictions I want to talk about. This is a 1-year study that we did during the pandemic. We have a service robot called Now, and we tested this at a full service Marriott Morgantown hotel here. And then it's interesting that more customers are willing to talk to service robot now versus a front desk employee. We saw that there is people said 88% of the people that we collected data from. Again, this is pretty initial stage of our research. Once we have a generalizable data, I'll probably present it and report that. But we saw an 88% of an engaging experience among these customers, because we coded the robot to talk about the COVID guidelines, protocols, and how the hotel really is doing a great job taking care of the guest and all of that. And at the same time, creating experience within the hotel itself, so giving them deals and creating an experiences that they're looking for. At the same time, we also looked at, whether they're willing to pay more when value is created to service robots. And 39% of respondents are willing to pay more when value is created. And again, this is what business owners are looking for, right? They want to see that there is an ROI when you integrate service robots. While mobile check-ins are getting really common, the service robots as well as chatbots that are really something that you can integrate to our websites and apps down the lane. I think we need to do more of that in the future. That can be created, that can be used to create personal experiences. This is where we saw 78% of the respondents are planned to recommend a business when using these technologies, service robots and chatbots. And again, personal experiences are important, whereas our industry is very good in customized experience, but not personal experience, and which I'm going to talk in the next slide. But there is a rise of AR, IoTs and machine learning and 5G. And I think that is where you can make a case for high tech, for creative high touch engagements. So the high tech touch engagements that we're going to have in the future are going to be more creative, value added, and more valuable in the future. And that's what our guests are looking for. So during the pandemic, as you know, a lot of our clients did not have the funding. So we took a step back, and we have an app that we're developing, a kiosk, an interactive kiosk we are developing in the lab. And then the funding did not come in. We took a break and we said, let's go back to basics, how we can really help the industry during the pandemic. So we started with as simple as trying to understand, how to reduce the surface transmission versus how to reduce the, the first transmission, the initial transmission and things like that. And during the time, I can tell you, we found that there is a transatlantic divide in consumer behavior. A recent article that I read pretty clearly, it said, you can divide the types of people during the pandemic into 3 different types. Pandemic pros that are really following the guidelines, know exactly what to expect, looking for the right information before making decisions and things like that. There are there is a pandemic panics, or pretty much in a panic stage, looking at all the negative things happening across and are concerned about staying. And there are pandemaniacs, and the pandemaniacs are the people who are influenced by these 2 groups, given a period of time. Like, you go out and nobody's wearing masks, and they're like, okay, I'm not going to wear masks. Nobody is wearing masks. And either if everybody's wearing masks, I'll wear masks. So these people are right in the middle, trying to fit within the environment. But again, there's a huge transatlantic divide in there, not only just in US, but globally. The other thing that we really a new project that I've been working on that's keeping me really busy, a pretty long-term project actually, is we started looking at how our technology applications and systems in our industry are still in legacy, which means they're all in silos, and then what's happening is the customization is happening based on segmentation and demographic data, loyalty, and so on and so forth. We did a machine learning research published in JHTR regarding engagement and value and loyalty. I mean, a lot of those fit in this study, but the problem is we're not able to do personalization. When you look at the types of people during the pandemic pros versus panics versus pandemaniacs, you need to have that kind of information post-pandemic in order to really create those personal experiences. And our technologies are not designed that way. They don't talk to each other a lot of times. In fact, there are 12 to 15 systems in a full service hotel a general manager have to deal with. And I think the information is all over the place, not in one place. And that's a bigger problem when it comes to really creating high tech and high touch engaging experiences. The other thing that that's very fascinating is that 39% of the consumers have tried new brands during the pandemic, which tells you that there's going to be innovation. There's a room for more products and services, new things, entrepreneurship within our industry, and more studies that needs to be done in order to understand the future of loyalty. One of the things that during the startup, we learned very quickly was we were ahead of the pandemic sometimes. Our ideas are really ahead of the pandemic. And while the waves are changing at a rapid pace in different globally. We did this in Australia, India, and US, and we found that Australia did recover very quickly, and then India had a second wave now, but again they're struggling now. US, on the other hand, have two waves, and we're really struggling with doing well, but again trying to communicate the importance of third wave as well. But sometimes we were ahead of the game, ahead of the pandemic, and we had to take some of the applications back. It's important that we have proof of concepts in a lot of these high tech in order to really create high touch engagement experiences. So again, we took a step back again and they said, we want to make sure these products that we're doing really will help the post-pandemic experiences as well. So having said that, it's important that we study these current and future pandemic waves, because this, the influence on consumer behavior is going to be specific to a technology, product, and/or service. There's no way you can generalize across all the technologies. You have to study specific to a particular product or service in order to really understand the impact on consumer behavior during and post-pandemic as well. So that's my last slide. Here is my info if you have any questions.
Thank you, AJ. That was wonderful. I appreciate it. Last but not least, we would like to go to Professor Stan right now. And we are getting questions, right? I also would like to invite the panelists, please look at the chat box, because some of the questions are specific to you. So I will go into, as soon as Stan is going to deliver his opening statement, we are going to go to the questions. And I'm really excited about that part of the panel as well. Professor Stan, the floor is yours. Yeah, we can see the slides. Yep, perfect.
Okay, so, and I suppose you hear me as well. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor to participate in the panel. So, the title of the topic of the panel is high tech versus high touch, or both. I would personally reframe the question whether tourism and hospitality companies will be able to provide high touch services in the future. And we heard about COVID-19. It is a significant game changer, and definitely it forces tourism and hospitality companies to adopt faster technologies faster than they used before the pandemic. However, there's also another factor that is significantly staying there like a tsunami, waiting to flood the developed economies, and besides them, every country in the world. So this is demography. Demography is probably the most important driver of automation in tourism. And this number, the number of children per woman in the world, is probably the most important number in the history of humanity. It is more important than the price of Bitcoin, the impact factor of a journal, or how many days the Suez Canal was blocked. So we know that in order for humanity to survive, we need to reproduce. So, in order to keep a population stable, considering a constant mortality rate, we need something like 2.1 children per woman. 2 children replace the parents, 0.1 children compensate for child mortality until the kids reach fertility age. So if we have something like 2.1 children per woman, we will have a relatively constant population within a country. However, since 1966, the number of children per woman is plummeting. When I say plummeting, I really mean plummeting significantly. So from something like 5.2 in 1966, which was, I think, the year with the highest number of children in the post Second World War period, to slightly more than 2.3. So we have a significant decline. However, this decline is is not distributed evenly in the countries. So we see some countries like South Korea, Italy, Portugal, etc. These are usually countries with quite high GDP, where we have significantly less children per woman that is necessary to keep the population at a constant rate. So we see, for example, that within the European Union, the number of children is 1.5 per woman. This means about more than 25% fewer kids than necessary to keep the population. This means that in the future, we will see a significant decline in the population of these countries. On the other side, we have other countries like Malaysia, Bangladesh, India, Indonesia, Philippines, where we have the number of children is above the replacement rate. And these are practically the countries that will be leading demographically in the world in the next decades. So what are the solutions? If we look at the possible solutions in the long term from a political point of view, there are practically three of them. The first, and we can classify them based on whether they are short-term or long-term solution, and on the basis of the social and political resistance and tension that these solutions will cause. So the first one is to produce more people through the natural biological process invented through evolution more than 500 million years ago. Of course, this, however, requires a longer process, and the impact will be felt on the labor market in at least 40, 50 years. The second option is to import people. However, this is not solving the problems, because we are actually transferring some of the problems from one country to another country. And of course, this causes a huge tension, especially when there is a huge difference in social cultural terms. And finally, we have a third option. This is to substitute people. So this means that that companies in the long term, they will be forced to use automation, not because they want it, but because they do not have a choice. There will not be sufficient number of people and people with required qualification on the labor market to fill in the jobs. Currently, the population in the US, in Europe is growing, but this is largely due to extended life expectancy and also immigration. But of course, in the long term, countries and companies, they will need to focus on that, to focus on automation in order to decrease their needs for labor as a production factor. So I will now focus on, just for a couple of minutes, on the tasks that are suitable for automation, because for robotization, sorry. There are many things which companies can do, and this is the classic example of Henne Hotel that was opened in March 2015 in Japan. Of course, this was highly popularized. But in January 2019, they turned off half of their robots. And you can't imagine what happened on my Facebook wall, because my friends know how much I love and I support robots. So these are all screenshots of people who are posting links on my Facebook wall in that week in January. This was just before the Enter conference in Nicosia. And what we can learn from a Henne Hotel is that probably they went too far in terms of automation of some tasks. So Craig and I, we implemented one global survey about about robots in tourism, and one of the sections was about the tasks appropriate for robotization. What we found is that the tasks that tourists they considered as appropriate for robotization in terms of back of house tasks, they related to cleaning, housekeeping, document processing. For front of house, we talk about information provision, taking orders, delivering different items like room service. So practically, these are tasks which tourists are already used to be provided by computers or self-service kiosks, like information provision, or tasks which people usually are not keen to do, like cleaning, laundry, ironing. Just think about who does the cleaning and hanging the laundry at home, and whether you would like to transfer this to a robot. Then tasks that do not require much involvement by customers, like delivery of various items by a robot. But what we found is that respondents did not consider tasks as appropriate for robotizations. These cooking, babysitting, dancing, and massages. These were the four tasks which were definitely rejected by respondents. So Craig and I were thinking about what this means, and we reached to the conclusion that the common thing here is that these are tasks that require people to implement the orders of a robot. So here we have also guards and security. This was also one of the things that was not quite accepted to be robotized, or tasks that require people to temporarily subordinate their or their children's physical body to a robot. So that's why massages and babysitting. So practically, people are still perceiving robots as tools and or slaves. So this will probably will change in the future, especially in the context of the ideological fields of technology that we heard of. So this is my initial statement. Thank you, and I'm ready to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stan, also as well. What a great conversation. I am really thrilled. Usually, I am the one of the invited speakers in panels like this. Most of the time, I'm on the other side. But you know, I learned something today, that I should not always talk. I should also learn to listen, because I learn more from my peers by listening to them. So I really appreciate all the great information that you shared with us. Now I would like to go. You know, I prepared a lot of questions by myself, but there are quite a few questions from the audience. So I'm going to start reading them in the order that they came. And Uli, the first question is for you. You probably have seen it, but I would like to ask our panelists, please be as quick as possible. And then just because a question was asked for one person doesn't mean that the others cannot answer. If you have anything to add to the person, please feel free to simply unmute your mic. Maybe you can even unmute four of you, so we can have interaction even among ourselves. Maybe what Uli is going to say may say, no, I don't agree, you know, this is what's going to happen, or whatever. That would be wonderful to have interaction, instead of I just ask one question to one person, get the answer, and then go. So let's start the discussion. Dear Professor Grätzl, I want to ask you a question. In your ideological field of technology, I guess Uli, she's referring to the one that you adopted. How can one person process all different four ideology? I guess first the question is that, can a person be in different minds in different times of that ideological stages? Is there a conflict among them? And also, this is a young scholar. What research topics do you suggest based on this?
Yeah, excellent set of questions. So yes, by definition, these four ideologies are conflicting. This is why it's a semiotic square, and they're conflicting in terms of morality, in terms of emotionality, and in terms of the object that they put in as important. So that also then answers the first question. That's someone will struggle to negotiate all four. And I think some people are clearly in one camp. I still know people who are totally against technology. They don't have a phone. They have absolutely nothing, right? For them, it's pretty easy. They interpret everything from this green Luddite kind of perspective. But most of us are at the center of this technological ideology field. And that means we struggle to constantly negotiate. And these different kinds of ideologies will pop up for us in different contexts. So for example, I have an Amazon device sitting right next to me here. And I absolutely love it because it plays music and it's functional. It allows me to do things more efficiently, right? But then at the same time, sometimes it triggers this notion of, wait a minute, I'm so reliant on this technology. What is it actually listening to? And also the natural component of, we never talk about the disposal of robots, for example, or these devices, right? So what happens when this device dies? Or we all know that during the pandemic, especially, we got these shipments and they have been optimized for robot handling in the Amazon warehouses, right? And so we were buried in boxes during this time, right? So it's a struggle, it's a conflict. And so I think from a research perspective, it's really important for us to understand what triggers these different kinds of ideologies to come forward, right? What are the moments where someone will actually start seeing the technology more as a threat than as progress, right? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to understand how meaning making is influenced by contextual factors. And I also think there's a personality and maybe even a cultural component to it, where some people are more naturally inclined to fall into one of these camps than others. So I see lots of opportunities here.
Great, thank you, Uli. Anybody else would like to add to this question in terms of research opportunities? If not, I'm going to go to the next question. I would like to, yes, Yves.
I'm readying
Do you have something else to add to this one? Or
no, I'm readying myself for the next question.
Okay, good. Let's go into that. Wonderful, because that's specific to Uli, and I do like that research, Uli, as well. So, Yves, for you, you report that technology brings a lot of value to guests or customers. Do you believe that technology creates a technology paradox in which, while it creates value for the guest, it actually reduced the profits of the company? Thinking of what Stan have said also too with the Hotel Hanna, they started and then they said, oh my God, what do you think about that?
Sure. If I may, actually, I would like to add to answer both questions. There's like another question that's kind of similar, but perhaps from the customer's perspective. But I'll start with what Stan actually mentioned. The main reason why automation was adopted, especially in the Japan case, was because of labor shortage. And so now imagine if we're not getting people to work in hospitality or in tourism in the future, for companies, the implication would be that the scarcer the labor, the more that they need to pay. I mean, this is just the reality of it, right? So when you are adopting automation or you're automating some processes in the hospitality or tourism or travel operations, then it means that you increase efficiency. And in this case, it will actually positively influence the bottom line from the provider's perspective. Now, but it's not only about labor, right? It is about efficiency of the processes in many different aspects. And so I'm thinking about, for example, the more and more companies are using blockchain, for example, to actually apply, trust and more traceability to reduce waste. And that's probably going to have two different, I guess, impacts. One is the efficiency for the company itself in terms of making sure that they actually operate in an efficient way, but also for customers in terms of being informed that they are making the right choices when it comes to, for example, sources of food and making sure that there is no unethical practices in terms of, for example, modern slavery. I can talk a lot more about this, but those are the things that I think would benefit companies by adopting technologies, automation, or any kinds of digital technologies to provide solutions for processes and operations. Now, from the consumer side of things, when I asked what will be the impact to people's emotion, because they actually need that interactions. And then I think I would like to actually go back to what Stan mentioned, right? So when we talk about automation, what happens is in different workplaces. So we talk about workplaces and workforce, right? And that's kind of the big picture of what's happening if we adopt automation. Now, automation would actually replace human employees in terms of tasks. So not all jobs will be impacted. And for some tasks and jobs, automation will replace people. For some, they will substitute, but for lots of different aspects of tourism and hospitality, they will actually augment or supplement workers, right? And so now actually what we are doing in terms of research is looking into what we call super teams, right? So it's the combination of human employees and AI being a team member in different operations within a company. So whether it's marketing or back of the house and so on. And the impact of this is humans have limited dexterity, right, for different kinds of things. So if we implement thinking machines and feeling machines, then different roles will be shared amongst intelligent systems and employees. And so, for example, one of the findings from our research on decent work in tourism related to automation is that for roles that are more transactional and operational, it should be automated because, again, humans are not very good at numbers counting and so on and so forth. But roles that are more relational, so it's like building relationship with customers, should be retained, should be allocated to human employees. So we provide then both high tech and high touch, I guess, at the same time.
Wonderful, thank you. I have a follow-up question for you, Is, but I'm going to leave that to a little bit later. There is a question for all of the panels about the education curriculum, what kind of things that we need to change. That question, especially for Stan and Is, because you are in leadership positions in curriculum development. So please be thinking about that. But I'm going to go to the question for Ece. You mentioned the increase in e-commerce. And also, Ece, you also said that people are ordering more online, blah, blah, all that stuff, just touristic products as well, to tourism products like restaurants. So the question continues, do you think the pandemic has increased technology adoption in the hospitality industry? If yes, do you think that this will result in higher level of digitization for hospitality industry? I assume that, Ece, this question talks about the portions of the hospitality industry that are small business that didn't use technology in a larger scale before the pandemic. What do you think about that?
So the simple answer is yes, it did increase technology adoption in our hospitality industry. People that are using apps for retail or Instacarts and so on and so forth are getting used to this idea, and now people are getting more adopted to mobile check-ins now, right? As you can see, people are doing more mobile check-ins, getting food from restaurants through apps and things like that. So the adoption is happening at a rapid pace in other areas, does have a direct impact on hospitality and tourism. They're not traveling right now in flights, and they're not really going to resorts and hotels as much. But again, that translates directly from what they have done outside hospitality into hospitality. And the other thing that we want to look at from a digital experience is, once people start trusting in terms of loyalty into a brand, they start to actually, post-pandemic, that is an important study that, if you're interested in, how that's going to translate into the future of loyalty as well, because now they trust this brand for COVID protocols, guidelines, and transparency and things like that. That's going to really impact the future of loyalty. And that's where hospitality is. One of the points that I said was, we are a little bit behind because of the legacy systems and silos, because as much as we like to customize experiences, we don't do a great job of personalizing experiences. Again, identifying the pandemic pros, pandemic, panics and things like that. If you can do that through technology, then you can use high tech in order to create engaging high touch experiences. And I think across the board, the adoption is going to happen rapidly in our industry post-pandemic. As things open up, people are going to expect things to happen on their phone. And if the businesses are not doing that, the loyalty is going to transform to other businesses that are doing it.
Exactly. Perfect.
I hope I answered that question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You did, absolutely. And also, I am very lucky with this panel, because the panelists, the attendees keep asking the questions even better than the ones that I prepared. So that's good. So without further ado, we have got 15 minutes left, and I want to get to as many as possible, these questions. Stan, this is for you. You report that a low population increase will lead low population. Yeah, I guess a decrease, want to say that, will lead to more robot use. However, won't this create the catch-22 situation in which robots use increase will take away jobs, therefore discouraging families to have more babies, no jobs, because the jobs went to robots? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, probably in the long term, in the next 50, 60 years, this may happen. But at least for the next 10, 15 years, the robots and other types of automation, they will compensate for the unborn kids. So practically, companies will be filling the positions which humans do not want to take. So this is what robots will do for the moment.
Great. Go ahead, please. You want to finish?
Yeah. This was in short. So probably we may observe that the families will be discouraged to have more babies, but there are many factors that influence this decision. So it's not only whether they are robots or not.
Great. Okay, I want to ask all panelists yes/no question that came from one of the attendees. Would you let a robot babysit your child? Ease, let's start with you.
I don't have a child, so but
if you did,
probably not.
If you did, or your niece, your cousin, whatever.
No.
Uli, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we assume that humans are automatically better than robots. There's so many horror stories about human babysitters that there's this assumption that humans are good and robots are bad. I'm very much against this generalization, and the same is true for a workplace. When we did the research on the sense making, a lot of people said, I'm so tired of interacting with humans. All these, inefficient hotel receptionists who are like, oh, you're making me work. So I think in a lot of ways, it's not a given that people prefer social interactions.
So I take that as a yes then.
Yeah, I was happy about the pandemic. I'm like, yay, I don't have to constantly see people. So I think we have to be careful. So my answer is yes, I'd rather trust a robot that has been programmed to monitor, right? The robot is not going to fall asleep. The robot is not going to get drunk. The robot is not going to have a boyfriend over. And so absolutely yes.
Great. Okay. AJ, how about you? Would you
I second that with what Uli said. Absolutely, yes. And again, it all depends on, if the age of the child too, right? If the child is, can walk and go around and, keep his fingers in a plug or somewhere, then you have to really have a consent. But absolutely, yes. In fact, actually, the robot that I have does babysit my pet. So my pet actually has a great interaction with the robot all the time. And then I talk through the robot sometimes with the pet when I'm, out, and still, it engages, obviously with the kids, it's the same thing. And again, a lot of these, the one I have now is you can connect with camera, you can actually, play songs and rhymes and poems and all of that. So absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Stan, how about you? Would you let your child to be babysit by a robot?
Well, my child turned 18 2 months ago. So probably he will babysit the robot, probably he will robot sit. But so the situation will be reversed. But yes, but I also agree with AJ that it all depends on the age. So probably for kids 1-2 years old, it would be too much. But for 5, 6, it might be quite interesting, and especially for teenagers.
Great, yeah. Stan, while you're on, there is a question for you from Professor Jalil Çakıcı. So I want to ask you, I want to, rephrase the question. So basically, he's asking about tourism, an important sector to employ a large number of people, even if they have low education level, right? Frontline jobs. So he's asking you about what is your recommendations to the developing or underdeveloped countries in terms of employing robots?
Well, yeah, here it is also a political question, because if you have a massive implementation of automation technologies there, then this will lead to huge, may lead to high unemployment. But probably these countries, they may position themselves as providing high-touch service. So it's not compulsory for countries and companies to adopt robotic technologies, but these technologies and to offer this product that is relevant for the market.
Perfect. There is a question about blockchain. I don't know if any of you have done research on blockchain. I'm going to ask that question to you in a second, but so be thinking about it if you do have an answer. But I want to ask this question. I want to come back to Zafer Oter's question about what should undergraduate students learn as technological skills, regarding all these technology innovations, because how should tourism schools design their curriculum? So should we become a tech school? We should teach people how to repair a robot in a front desk, or whatever. So, I'll start with you, please.
Sure. It's an interesting question, right? Because it's not too different from the question whether we should teach our students skills in terms, for example, skills in the kitchen, in the restaurant kitchen, or do they need to have the skill with rooms division in hotels, for example? Some yes, I guess, but it depends on the kind of graduates we want to have in our undergraduate programs. Most of the time, I think in hotel tourism and hospitality management, we would like our students to be managers, right? To go into the workplace, the workforce at that level. And so to me, I think the most fundamental skills that they need to have is understanding the digital transformation and how to integrate this into operations within tourism destinations or hotels or restaurants and hospitality companies. And so we do have compulsory modules on technology, media, and data, where they actually learn how to, analyze big data with visualization and so on and so forth, so that they can extract business insights for decision making. But to be honest, what we have at SARI, at least, is we have the streaming of these different skills, and so digital is one of them. So it means that in all modules that we have, we actually have some sort of stages where students will be getting digital skills in their first year, and then second year and third year, kind of first of all, it's the operations aspect, and then move up into a strategic ones. And so that's, I think, what we actually need to equip our students with. The idea that technologies will change. I'm not sure what will be the landscape in the next 5 years, but I think that skills to be able to be digital literate, but then also be strategic in the applications of this into business, is what our students need.
Exactly. We didn't have internet before 1990, right, for the public, and we didn't have iPhone before 2007. So things are going to change. This question stands. Since I'm going to go next to you, because you both are the leaders in your organizations, at least for you in Bulgaria. What do you think about that? Should we have more technology classes in curriculum in hospitality and tourism schools?
Yes, this is a fantastic question. Practically at my university, at Varna University of Management, last year in the hospitality management program, we introduced one module which is named Technologies in Tourism and Hospitality. We don't look at the technologies from a technological perspective, from a technical perspective, how to repair a robot, how to code, but we look at the technologies from operational and from managerial perspective, so that students, they can evaluate the value of technology, how to use it to create experiences, to make efficient processes, etc. And if they need someone to repair, they can have a robot to repair it.
Exactly. Okay, AJ, how about you? Quickly.
So here at WVU, the HIT Lab is actually a platform for our hospitality students. And by the way, the HIT Lab is not for just hospitality. We have interdisciplinary students, computer science, engineering, design, MIS, marketing, management, you name it. So having all these interdisciplinary students is going to be vital for our hospitality students as well. That's very important. Starting fall, we are introducing a new course in innovation and technology, and where HIT Lab will be a platform as well. Apart from HIT Lab being a platform across all the program, this course will go beyond the HIT Lab. We are partnering with the Launch Lab at the university level, and also Encova Center and Vantage. These are all WVU ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship. And I think that's where our hospitality students are getting exposed, not only from a college standpoint, but at a university level as well, and learning what's happening in terms of innovation and technology across other disciplines. And this is where I think bringing your skill set within people business, as well as I agree with Stan, bringing your leadership and strategy in terms of technology to the table, and finding the talent that people who can code it, people who can actually write the code for an app or a robot, working with them is going to give them an amazing experience, a hands-on experience that's going to prepare them for future.
Yes, thank you. And Uli, I know that you're not teaching per se, right? Or you're not designing curriculum, you're more in the research side. But what is your thought about this curriculum changes that we all have to do in terms of to reflect these changes or the use of technology in hospitality and tourism? So
I'm more traditional university as a intellectual education kind of person. So I don't think someone will have to learn how to repair a robot, but I think what it teaches us is that we need to think about how to teach technology service failure and how to manage that or how to avoid that, right? So it's not the physical repair, but the emotional repair, maybe. And there was another great question that I saw, this notion that if everything is efficient, won't that be boring, right? And I don't think it will be. Technology causes a lot of frustration. Technology fails. So I think we need students who can deal with these new scenarios, and then also maybe create particularly engaging experiences around these new levels of efficiency. So I think those are the areas where we need the human talent to come in.
Okay, thank you so much. Last 3 minutes. There's many more questions, which is wonderful to have as a moderator. But I want to finish this, and I will follow up. I will ask Dr. Doğan to please copy these questions for me. I will interact with our panelists offline to be able to get some summary results and answers and post that on mtcon.org website, because I value these questions very much. Without further ado, one participant asked you if when we do this, not if, when we do the third MTCon next year in Turkey, or, I mean, we are asking this not just for you individually, but please answer this for the whole, based on your research, for the whole travelers. Do you think that people are going to go to in person, right, high touch, or are they going to go high tech, or is it going to be a hybrid? In other words, does the meeting industry, events industry have to offer everything now online and face-to-face together, or they will say, hey, if you don't want to come, don't come? What is your thoughts? AJ, I'll start with you.
So Jihan and I, we are in the ICRE, conference committee, technology conference committee, actually task force. And the thing that we did was, hybrid, right? It's a hybrid conference, actually virtual happening this year, but going forward, it's going to be hybrid. I think until we know the new strains of the virus, the impact on the waves and globally that's happening. I mean, as you can see, Europe was doing really better than US, and then all of a sudden the wave started there in Asia as well, specifically India, and then they are really struggling right now to control that. So you need to study this globally, how it's impacting, and until we know that globally people can travel, I would definitely have a hybrid as well, a hybrid conference.
Okay, Uli, what is your thoughts about hybrid versus face-to-face or online in terms of events industry?
So I think right now we are already experiencing some of the real benefits of having this virtually. It would have been incredibly difficult to get all four of us, right, to this conference, and very costly. So I think people will want that kind of accessibility again. And even when travel is possible, I think there will always be maybe someone zooming in because they're not able to be physically present, or it's just a cost issue. But on the other hand, I think we all know that conferences are more than just attending sessions. So for those conferences where I'm just there to consume content, online is perfectly fine. But for conferences where I'm there to also build networks, I want to have those conversations, in the hallways over the coffee, and so that will not be replaced.
Great, thanks. Is, how about you?
Yeah, so I think it would be difficult to say if we are. I'm not sure we are going to go back to the way we did things before the pandemic, because I think during the pandemic, we've realized a lot of things. Processes can be more effective, learning can be more effective in some situations, and also, realizing that we're okay to travel less and to fly less and to pollute the world less. And so, to be honest, from my personal preference, I would probably be a little bit more selective going forward in terms of where I would like to go to for a conference. I'm not going to go back to my crazy traveling before the pandemic. So I agree with Uli. If I need to go to a conference because I need to maintain my relationship, then yes, I would probably go. But if it's just to give a talk or to consume content, I think online would be preferred.
Perfect, thank you. Stan, how about you?
Definitely hybrid. This is the best option.
Yep, and I agree with all of you. You know, I also want to finish this panel here in the respect of the panel's time and of course the attendees as well too. From what I heard from all of what you are saying during this panel, and also that my own research, that I think the key word that we are going to hear more and more is option. We have to give our guests, our employees, our investors, our managers the option of doing something versus the other. So it's not just one way, but it's, hey, look, there are 3 different ways that you can do this. Which one would you like to choose? You want to come into my hotel? Do you want to see a front desk clerk? I will give you that. Do you want to be checked in with your mobile device? Nobody's going to see you. I will give you that. Do you want to be checked in by the robot Pepper? Or Pepper is going to give you, like Ease wrote an article about Pepper in a restaurant environment. They are going to be able to do that. I think that's the solution. So, you know, there are still many more questions and comments that we couldn't get to because of the time, but I would like to thank every single of you, the panelists first, of course, the attendees as well, for making this such a rich and amazing and educational and at the same time entertaining experience for me. Have a wonderful day. The conference goes on. Dr. Doğan, the floor is yours, but I would like to thank our panelists again. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cihan. Thank you, Seren.
On
Appreciate
behalf
it.
of the organizing committee, I also would like to thank all of you, all the panelists, for joining us today. Thank you for your time and effort. It was an amazing panel. And we also would like to thank all the audiences, all the participants who joined us. I just want to remind one thing. Tomorrow, our conference will start at 1 p.m. Turkey time with the parallel sessions. We will have 2 keynote speakers at 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. And we will have experience conversations at 8 p.m. All the times that I have mentioned are in Turkish time. I hope you will join us tomorrow as well. And thank you again. Have a great day. Have a great night. Bye-bye.